Well, good morning, everybody. This is Jeff from Rust Bucket Valley Garage. Every once in a while, we take on a special project, take and help somebody out. And today, we've taken on a project to fabricate something for one of our customers, and we really want to help this person out. If you've watched the other videos, you've seen us work on the 1-ton GMC van that used to be a handicap van, and they're converting it over into a camping van. So this person is a lifeguard, and we really appreciate their work. They put their lives in danger to save us when we are out in the ocean and we get in trouble. So we do really appreciate them, and thank you all the lifeguards for your fine work, and especially thank you, Kevin. I'd like to take and talk to you about metal fabrication today. You do not need a shop with $10,000 or $20,000 worth of equipment to take and do a decent job of metal fabrication. Okay, I can show you some basic tools that you can get rather inexpensively, and you can come out with a real decent project. So the first thing you'll need is some kind of design. Generally there'll be a need, and say, okay, I need this project built. And you can do like a little sketch, get some very basic dimensions, and then that will kind of drive your material selection as to what kind of materials you want to use. Steel is actually the go-to material. Aluminum is a little bit more difficult because you need special machinery to take and weld that together. And I'm talking about using TIG, which is tungsten inert gas. Unfortunately, that is kind of an expensive rig. We have a rig here in the shop that we use for aluminum, and it's a $2,400 rig, and then there's gas bottles that are associated with that. But if you just want to take and do basic metal fabrication, you can use these tools. Okay, this right here is a Sawzall. Okay, Sawzall reciprocating saw. It's an electric device used for cutting material to length. This is like the most basic tool other than a hacksaw. Very efficient at doing what it does. This right here is an electric bandsaw. It's really good for chopping up long lengths of material. Once you take and get the material chopped to length, then you want to clean up the ends. Okay, this is a grinder with a 60 grit flap wheel on it. Once you get your material to length and you get the ends cleaned up, okay, then you need to take and weld it together. Okay, this welder right here is from Harbor Freight, and it's actually a decent machine. It is a wire feed welder that has a reel inside one of the covers with wire in it that has a core in the middle of it that it looks just like regular wire, but it's actually not. When you're doing welding on any kind of metal, this is commonly called a MIG machine, metal with an inert gas. What happens is the core burns as you're welding, and it creates an inert gas field around your weld, and you get a lot cleaner weld, a lot better weld, less splattering. It's a stronger weld. So this machine right here at Harbor Freight is about $150. That's awesome. So this is for lighter gauge material. We use this in spotting things together, like quarter panels and things like that. It'll easily take and handle 22 gauge panels, which is very, very nice. This is very, very handy. This machine right here is another Harbor Freight machine. This one's about 225, I guess. This one will handle the heavier materials and has variable heat on it. This one again uses a flux cord wire, which is on a reel inside one of the covers. Very, very handy machine. This one operates off of 220 volts. This one operates off of 120 volts, just as regular house current. So, yeah, you can take and do fabrication using welding, and you don't need a $2,000 machine to take and do that. Okay, so what project did we do? So on the back of the van that I previously mentioned, there was kind of a angle iron framework that stuck out quite far, that had a generator inside a cabinet, and it was used for auxiliary power to take and power things in the van. Okay, the customer wanted that removed, and they also had expressed that since they spend a lot of time in the ocean, it's cold around here in Southern California. The water's kind of cool. So if you go in the ocean, you want a wetsuit on, takes and insulates you. You can spend more time out there. You won't get hypothermia. So make it a better day for you. They wanted us to take and fabricate kind of a locker that would go on the back of the van in place of the area where the generator is. We used one of the wire feed welders just to take and tack this together, and today we're going to be finishing up the joints and grinding them, and then we put a paint job on there, and then in these areas here and on the sides and on here, there will be a mesh that will be in there that will create ventilation through here, and this will be a place on the back of the van for the customer to store their wetsuits after they get out of the ocean, and they won't be having water damage inside their vehicle. So we need to take and go over tomorrow. Unfortunately, our metal supplier was closed by the time we got to them yesterday, but this is just tacked together. So we'll be putting the mesh on there. We need to get the mesh. There is a door that we built on the front of this. You can see we have a door that we built that will fit inside that frame. We need to go to the local hardware store, pick up some hinges and a lock mechanism, take and weld that on, and then get it ready for finishing. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to take and keep the cost of materials down. So far the cost of materials has been zero for this customer. We are doing this just for the cost of materials only. So we quoted them a price of under $100 for materials. So we have the door and the cabinet built. It is approximately 7 inches deep, 23 inches wide, 37 inches tall. Okay, so they'll be able to take and put their wetsuits in there and have them dry in a secure environment. Asking a customer how much a wetsuit costs. They're quite expensive, actually, about $300. And I'm thinking, wow. So we'll take and we'll finish this out, and we'll be back with you as soon as we take and do that. So as I mentioned before, in building this this little locker for the lifeguard, we need to take and complete the welds. So what we've done is we've used the oxygen acetylene setup in the small workshop. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, there are 2 tanks here. One is oxygen. The other one is acetylene, so it's oxyacetylene. The The acetylene uses the oxygen as an oxidizer, which it increases the combustion factor of the acetylene. And so we take and mix these together, and we have a hose here that goes over to our torch, and this is what our torch looks like. Okay, and the reason we're using that to take and complete the welds on here is I wanted to show you something, and I don't remember seeing something like this on YouTube before, so I wanted to take and give you a close-up look at it. If we used the conventional wire field welders, since it uses electricity, the light that is emitted from that is like pure ultraviolet, and it is really, really too bright for the camera to take and pick up exactly what's going on. So if I use the oxyacetylene rig, it takes a little bit longer because the wire feed welders are very fast, and so are the stick welders. Okay, you can do a weld very, very quickly with those because it develops a very, very high heat. With the oxyacetylene rig, it's quite a bit cooler. You will get a little bit of distortion in something like this. It doesn't really make a difference because all this is like frame steel. It will distort a little bit, but we can pull it and tug it back into shape. Generally, when we take and use the wire feed welders, we're welding on car parts, and any kind of heat distortion is a very, very bad thing because it just means extra work. If you're welding on a quarter panel, something like that, and you get heat distortion in there and it puts a wrinkle in the quarter panel, that is very difficult to take and get out. Okay, it's going to just be hours of extra work. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you on one of the joints here exactly what happens with the welding process, and we can get a real close-up look at it because it won't be a bright light washing out the video. So what we're going to be doing is this joint right here is just tacked together on the back, and we're going to be running a bead of welding across this. Okay, and I'm going to take and set the camera up with a special lens where you'll be able to take and get a closer look at that. Okay, generally when you're welding, okay, you have a welding hood on that has a UV filter in it, and for the MIG and TIG welders, you would use a number 10. And this is a number 5. What that relates to is how dark this is. Okay, so it will say on here, okay, so SPFSH5, okay, and that's the, in other words, how dark it is. So 10 would be twice as dark as 5, and 5 would be 5 times as dark as like none. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the front of the camera, and then I'm going to set the camera up in such a way that you can actually see the weld. Okay, so let me go ahead and set that up. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to take and fire up the torch, and we'll go ahead and get a neutral flame. So use a striker. Okay, so this right here is a carbonizing frame. Okay, then you bring in the oxygen, and this is a neutral flame. Okay, looks like this. We want a little bit more heat on there, so we'll add a little more fuel. Okay, so we're just about ready to go. Okay, get in position here. Okay, now whenever you're going to take and do a weld, you need rod. So we'll go ahead and we'll heat the joint up, and then what we're going to do is these two pieces here, we're going to create a puddle of metal between them, and you stick the rod in there just before the puddle drops. Okay, and then you move on to the next, and then you heat it and do the same all the way across your weld. Okay, and the reason you get holes is because you're not quick enough and you drop, the puddle drops before you get the metal in it. Okay, so let's go ahead and heat that up, and let's do some welding. Okay, so we're going to get it just beyond cherry red. We might want to take and heat this up just a little bit more. Kind of hear the roar of the torch going here. So it's really going to take and put out some heat. There, it's starting to get cherry red. Okay, so the puddle is starting to form. Generally what I do is I'll put a little drop of metal on there just to get it started. Okay, so we have a puddle started. We will go ahead and run this. Just keep feeding it all the way across. You got to be kind of quick. This will take and burn back to leave it with a nice hole here, especially when you're near the edge of the material. So hopefully you can see what's going on. When you get to the edge of the material, you want to stick the rod in there and hold it, because the edge will take and burn back for you, leave you with a nice hole. Okay, so you want to reinforce that edge a little bit. You take the torch, take both ends, okay, and there you go. Okay, shut the torch off. Okay, you'll let it cool down. Okay, so after we take and finish doing all the welds, we have 8 welds to do. We are going to grind that off, and then we are going to put a paint job on this puppy today. So we'll be able to take and put the screen in there. I was lucky to take and find an old security screen door, and we can take and use a screen out of that to take and put in here. Really keep our cost of materials down low. Okay, let me show you what the weld looks like. Okay, this is a weld that we just did. We will go ahead and we will take and grind that off, and then we'll be ready for paint. And we have, there are 8 total, so we have 7 more to go. So let me go ahead and get on those, and I'll be back with you when we get it cleaned up and all ground up, and we'll be able to take and put a paint job on there, and I'll show you how that goes. Okay, we have this thing pretty much ready for paint. We've gone and degreased it, and we got all this off of it. So yeah, we got a lot of things going in the shop today, so please forgive the background noise. But we're using the low pressure high volume paint gun, okay, which is right here, and we have that loaded up with Rust-Oleum. So we have it thin 25%. So we're going to go ahead and put a coat on here, and we'll get back to you when we get that. So here we go. We have a couple of coats of Rust-Oleum on there, and not a sponsor. And this should keep the thing from rusting, and just looking pretty good. It laid down really nice. We took the Rust-Oleum and we thinned it 25% with mineral spirits, and we used the high volume low pressure air gun and coated all the surfaces and everything. So this will be ready for the screening. It is going to go in this surface here and this surface here and all around, so it'll be secure. And once the guy puts a padlock on here, it will be secure, and no one will take his stuff. And next time he comes, which is being about a week or so, we'll take and mount it on the back of his van using one-way bolts, and nobody will take and get those things off unless they have a torch. But this is a real good example of a pretty simple project that you can do with basic tools. You don't need a whole machine shop full of stuff to take and do a quality project. So take a chance. Go ahead and let your creativity go wild. Okay, so hopefully I've given you some useful information. And please subscribe and hit the notification button, and you will know when we do something brand new. Thank you so much for all the comments. Thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.